They say no sequel is as good as the original, and this monastery is proof of that. We're here in Ballinskelligs in County Kerry, a spin-off monastery from Skellig Michael, the island monastery with its famous beehive huts, made all the more famous as Luke Skywalker's hiding place in the Star Wars sequels. The roots of that monastic community go back, it seems, to the 6th century, and it's far from the only such monastery off the coast of Ireland. In an earlier video in this Treasure Ireland series, filmed at Ullán Mhic Dara off the coast of Connemara, we explained that this was how early Irish Christians imitated the desert fathers of Egypt. These islands were their desert, their place of seclusion and spiritual combat on behalf of the whole of humanity and in union with Christ. Now we might be wondering why the monastic island of Skellig Michael is named after an angel, Michael the Archangel. In fact, angels, both good angels and bad angels, are associated with monastic seclusion right from the start. In the biblical vision of the world, the good angels are spiritual creatures who are real and active in human lives, who act on behalf of humanity and on behalf of individual men and women. And they're engaged in constant worship of God and constant combat with the bad angels, the demons, who have rejected God and who hate all his creatures. In the world of the Desert Fathers and the early Irish monastic movement, choosing to follow Christ in solitude meant entering more profoundly into the company of the angels and entering into more aggressive combat with demons. The stakes were simply higher in this way of life. And among the angels, of course, Michael is chief. He's mentioned in the book of Daniel as the angel who has special care for Israel. And in the vision laid out in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, it is Michael who leads the charge against the great dragon, the devil, Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. So when early Irish Christians prayed to St. Michael, as they very often did, they were choosing a side in this spiritual battle. They were on the side of light and goodness and justice and truth, and they were rejecting all the temptations that would lead them into hypocrisy and darkness. And they're also relying on angelic aid in their own personal battles, above all, the battle they will face at the end of life. From the 8th century to the 11th century, there are at least 3 different hymns written by Irish monks in honor of St. Michael. And it seems that these hymns were sung possibly on a daily basis in Irish monasteries. Around the same time that Skellig is first being referred to as Skellig Michael in the 11th century, a monk in Armagh wrote an invocation of Michael. He said, "To my soul bring help, bring comfort at the moment of my death. O champion against the evil, foul and troublesome world, come and help me. O advocate, triumphant and victorious in war, O angelic slayer of the Antichrist." That was certainly the idea in Skellig Michael. We can't be sure, of course, how faithfully it was lived out, but if you're willing to persevere in such harsh conditions, you must be in some way committed to monastic ideals. The thing is, though, at a certain point, it seems that the monks of Skellig Michael were no longer willing to stay on their island. It's not exactly clear when, but sometime in the 12th or 13th century, this mainland monastery was developed. And it was around this time that a new form of religious life was adopted by the monks, that of Augustinian canons. We've met this form of religious life elsewhere in this series, and we recognize that it's fairly susceptible to corruption. At Ballintubber Abbey too, we noted that the Canons Regular came to be associated with important sites of pilgrimage in Ireland, like Croagh and Lough Derg. What seems to have happened here then is that, perhaps with the connivance of local patrons, the hermits of Skellig Michael morphed into Canons Regular, becoming more associated with pastoral work and less associated with silence and solitude. It seems too that the island ceased to be a permanent home and became more of a place of pilgrimage. The canons, it seems, would bring pilgrims out to the island much like tour guides do today, maybe reminiscing about the austere lifestyle of their spiritual ancestors and picking up tips and bits of gossip from the pilgrims. Soon the canons of Ballinskelligs, still under the patronage of St. Michael, became entirely mainstream. In the mid-15th century, one of them, Maurice Mulcroney, was studying canon law in Oxford. You can't get more mainstream than that. The corruption here was mainstream too, unfortunately. In 1470, the prior here was accused and eventually found guilty of being, quote, an open and notorious fornicator. Certainly the standard of religious life in this place had fallen greatly from its beginnings 1,000 years earlier. The canons were probably not living angelic lives. Still, we can hope that even the worst of them would trust at the end in the mercy of God and call on Michael the Archangel to carry them home.